David Lewis was a good child, but something about the streets enticed him.
These guys are riding fancy cars, they have all the women, you know, they have all the money. I wanted to be able to have that respect that they had, you know, and have that influence.
David eventually realized nothing good would come of this lifestyle, so he decided to enlist in the Army. He was smart and had the potential to rise through the ranks to leadership. Instead, he chose to distinguish himself another way, as a criminal.
People would, just to get a few extra bucks, they would go purchase the alcohol and the cigarettes at the military store, and then they would actually go sell them for a huge markup. I didn't think myself above the law because the rationale, the justification is everybody's doing it, and nobody gets prosecuted for this.
David's small crimes led to bigger heists.
If we walked into an area and we saw where there was going to be a huge amount of cash, you know, we would plan to literally go get that cash.
So what's the game plan again?
We knew that when soldiers were in the field, back in those days, before the automatic draft, you got an officer who's got 2 briefcases, they're full of money, and they've got to go out to this remote area, give them their money, out in the woods. We would simply be out there waiting for them, and we would rob them.
Eventually, David was caught and sentenced to 24 years in Fort Leavenworth Military Prison.
I got this criminal thing wrong. I want to get it right. I'm in this institution. I've got the best and the worst of the worst around me, you know, and I've got famous people here, you know, the people that you've heard of on the news. I'm just going to get as much information and much knowledge as I can to become this master criminal when I get out.
But the horrible reality of life in prison overwhelmed David, and after 5 years in Leavenworth, he decided to kill himself.
I've got to deal with the craziness. I've got to deal with the yelling. I've got to deal with the bars closing. I've got to deal with all these issues again, you know, and I had to admit to myself that at that point, I was really tired of it. I actually take my sheet off the bed, tie it up, and make it into a makeshift noose and prepare for my last night on earth. While I was preparing, I reached over and grabbed my headsets, and this song by Lionel Richie called Jesus is Love, it comes on. And all my life I've heard that, you know, Jesus, you know, he loves you. He won't let you down. And this particular night, it reached somewhere deep in my core.
David began to pray.
I'm just there crying, bawling like a baby, admitting some ugly truths about myself, talking to God for the very first time, really talking to God. I'm at the lowest point in my life, but if you get me through this, I am going to, as best as I can, have an impact on everybody that I come in contact with. When that cell door opened the next morning, for the very first time, I was free. And I was free inside of prison.
As David grew in his newfound faith, he began to encourage other inmates.
We started a little believers group, you know, and we would minister to folks while we were there.
After David served an 8-year sentence, he was released. Today, he visits prisons to share his testimony with the inmates.
David has made a great impact here at Richmond City Jail. We love him, we care about him because we know that he actually cares. He knows the road of being in here, and it gives the residents here at Richmond City Jail hope that they can follow in his footsteps.
When David came, he inspired me. You had to change your mind thinking and let God cut you as a diamond. So when I surrendered, I found myself being a blessing to the guys at the jail.
Being in prison is not just a physical thing, you know, because it's about being trapped in your circumstances. The devil had me in his crosshairs, and he was trying to take me out, you know, and it would have been just another life unfulfilled. God, he means everything to me. He was patient enough to love me when I didn't love myself. He was patient enough to accept me when I finally came to my sentence. The example that I'm trying to set inspires somebody to say, you know what, I may be trapped by something, but If God can do this for him, then surely he can do it for me.